With news coming out that, the Oakland A's, as of now have been given permission to, kind of check, possible new locations, new homes for their team while they try to work something out with the city of Oakland for a waterfront ballpark in Jackson Square, I think that's what it's supposed to be. As well as the fact that even the Rays of Tampa Bay are looking to relocate. There was a video that I was recommended to, kind of when I was uploading my video on, this discussion about the A's possibly relocating. And it was a video where the two hosts, one of them being a former MLB or MILB player, minor leagues, if you will, coming on and kind of talking about the 10 cities that they feel that the A's could land in. Well, I figure, you know what? Their choices sounded very reasonable, some that I even mentioned. And I thought, why not kind of add the Rays to that as well, seeing as though they're also in discussions for possible relocation. So let's look at what I would consider basically the 10, hopefully I can remember and not lose track here, 10 cities that would be, possible great alternative homes or new homes for both the A's and the Rays, depending on the future for both teams. Seeing as though the A's lease with the Coliseum is up in 2024, and the Rays basically are in need of a new home for quite some time, and I don't know when the lease with Tropicana Field is up. But anyway, let's talk about the possible cities, the 10 cities that are possible for them to go to. Now, of course, with any 10 list, 10 is the most least, and, getting higher are the more likelies. So, number 10 for Oakland is San Jose. Now, one thing one of these co-hosts did talk about is the only negative factor there is San Jose is the home of the minor league team of the San Francisco Giants, that being the San Jose Giants. So San Francisco kind of has a stranglehold on that right now. And with that being the case, it would be a lot harder for any team to try to relocate to San Jose, knowing that a rival team that they might go up against has a minor league affiliate there. So San Jose, I'm not saying they're out of the running, but I do agree that right now at number 10, they are the least likely. As far as Tampa Bay goes, Tampa Bay, I think least likely for them would probably be Orlando. Now, I'm not saying Orlando is not a good choice or anything. It fits perfectly with the whole Rays, mascot theme, and it keeps them in Florida and all that. But honestly, I think there might be too much going on there. Right now with like the Magic and some other things going on. So I'm not ruling it out, but just like with San Jose, there might be an affiliation there with another rival team on the AL East side of things. Maybe even Miami. So maybe Miami has a minor league team located in that region. So, it's kind of like I said, kind of in the same ballpark as the San Jose thing for the A's, but it's not out of the picture. But right now, it's the least likely, in my opinion, for the Rays. Number 9, least likely, to me, has to be, and I hate to say this, Sacramento. I know Sacramento in the past for the A's, this being for the A's that is, has been wanting to get Oakland get the Athletics to come to town. Heck, Sacramento for years was one of the bidding cities to try to get the Raiders to relocate from Oakland to their city because of financialness, because they have the money to give them what they want. I mean, here's the thing. The Kings in the NBA were very close to leaving. The Kings were either going to head up north either to Oregon or Seattle, where they would have been rechristened the new Supersonics, or they would have gone someplace else, like San Antonio. Well, not San Antonio because they got the Spurs, but they would have gone someplace else, maybe even back to Kansas City. But thankfully that didn't happen, and they were able to raise the funds needed to get the Golden One Center that they now have, thus keeping the Kings in Sacramento. So Sacramento, they're not out of the equation, but like San Jose, the least likely, because you have the Bearcats there, and let me check something. I think maybe the Bearcats are A's affiliates, so that might help them. But then again, if you have a minor league team there, what sense does it make to have a major league team in the same market? You would have to relocate your minor league team. So let me check for a second. Okay, so Sacramento is also kind of like in that least likely scenario. And that was my Google in the back there. But like I said, Sacramento is also the least likely scenario, even though, like I said, they've been trying to get teams from the Oakland area to relocate. But just like with San Jose, as I just found out from Google, the River Cats, not the Bearcats, but the River Cats are giant affiliates. So just like San Jose, it would be hard for the A's to relocate over to there because of that minor league affiliation. But because of the fact that I put Sacramento at number 9, it doesn't necessarily mean it's least likely than with San Jose, because Sacramento's in the Central Valley, or at least the crown jewel of the Central Valley. So it would be a lot easier, not much, but maybe easier to convince the Giants to kind of relinquish their deal with the River Cats, which goes to 2030, a lot sooner, so that the A's could probably relocate there with a new stadium in mind, if that is the case. But San Jose and Sacramento right now at the bottom at 10, San Jose 9, Sacramento as the least likely for A's possible relocations. Again, Sacramento probably is more. What I'm trying to say is Sacramento is higher up. It's higher up because, like I said, even though the River Cats are giant affiliates, minor league wise, I think it'll be a lot easier for the Giants to relinquish the strangle there to allow the A's to hopefully relocate to Sacramento, to the capital city, if they wanted to stay in California. As far as Tampa Bay, as far as another place for the Rays go, like I say, Orlando, is a possible location for them, but again, maybe because of a minor league affiliation with the Marlins, that may be out of place. I think the most likely, so I think at number 9, the other most likely or least likely, I would have to go with, I'd have to go with Nashville. I mean, I know Nashville wants a team, there's no doubt, and they've been successful in getting some major league franchises there, but I just don't see the Rays relocating to Nashville. I don't see it. I don't see it because of the fact that even though it would be a good fit for them, and everything, because of the obvious renderings of what the stadiums would look like and all that, but I just don't see them being, working. I just don't see them working out there due to the fact that Nashville has a reputation of taking a team from the former home, relocating them there, and then rebranding them. And I don't think the Ray faithful, would want that to happen. I don't think they would want their Rays, despite where they may end up, to be named something else. I mean, when you look at the Titans, Oiler fans, even to this day, are not happy that Tennessee said, yeah, we're going to rename you the Titans. We're going to let you stay the Oilers for 1 year, but then you're going to be the Titans. I don't think they appreciated that even to this day. So I don't see Nashville as being a good fit either. I'm not saying it's not possible. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it being, a logical place for them to go. I really don't. I just don't see it being a logical place for them to go for possibly relocation for a new home stadium and all that. Number 8, as far as the A's go, I would have to say, once again, go back to what I just said for number 9 for the Rays, Nashville. Now, I'm not saying Nashville wouldn't be, logical. It's a lot higher up on the list. But again, I don't think athletic fans, despite how loyal they are, I don't think they would like the fact that their A's are going to end up in Nashville. Now, MLB has said that they'd be willing to realign divisions and all that just in case something like this would happen. But I don't really see it that much. I mean, it's more likely than, like I said, here in California with Sacramento and San Jose. But I don't see it, I don't see it anymore. What I'm trying to say is, I just don't see it being suitable for the A's. Even though, like I say, the renderings, show some good areas for the stadium to be built on, I just don't see it happening. I really don't. So, to me, Nashville, even though it's more likely than Sacramento and San Jose, still I don't think is going to fit them. Now, at number 8 for the Rays, this is one that I definitely don't see, and I'm sure people have talked about this, but I don't see basically South Carolina or any of it. I don't see South Carolina of any kind. And no offense against them, but I don't see. Let me check something. Yeah, I don't see Columbia, South Carolina being like a suitable home for them, even though financially they may be able to suit them and give them what they want. I just don't see it. And here's the thing. I'm listing off Columbia, South Carolina, and South Carolina and the major cities as a whole there because no one else has thought about it. And it would be something for South Carolina or any of the Carolinas to get a team. I really do. So, in my opinion, number 8, I just don't see South Carolina, being a viable place. Even though I feel it's more likely than Nashville and Orlando, I just don't see it being a viable place. Now, at number 7, for the A's, I have to go with Portland. Now, I know Portland, Oregon would love to have a team. They've been trying for years to get a team with all the renderings and stuff. And although it would keep the A's in the West and really turn the rivalry with the Mariners into something big because they'd be right across from each other almost, I just don't see it happening either. I mean, it's more likely, like I said, it's more likely, I'll put it this way, it's more likely than Nashville, it's more likely than Sacramento, it's more likely than San Jose, but, I just don't see it, being a viable place. I mean, the way the renderings are showing what a stadium would be, yeah, it'd be a nice atmosphere and location, but still it's like, I just don't see it. I don't see it, whatsoever, honestly, and it's not because I want them to stay in Oakland. I just don't see it, being, plausible, for them to go there without being rebranded. Yeah, that's what I see happening. I mean, they haven't been rebranded, prior to the other move from Philadelphia, to Kansas City and to Oakland. But I feel that if they were to go to Portland, there's a good chance that they would end up being rebranded. That's just my feeling. I don't think they would be rebranded if they'd go to Sacramento, San Jose, or even Nashville. But Portland, I feel, would be the place where they would say, okay, this is where the Athletics, the A's, come to die. And this is where a new legacy will begin. And I feel that that's something that, despite how you feel about the general manager, the owners, and all that. The ownership team, the management team at Oakland, despite how you might feel about some of the decisions and the guy overall that's in charge, of the team that doesn't, I guess, like to spend that much money. I honestly don't see them wanting to do that because, it would kill the legacy, of the athletics brand. So I don't see it happening. I mean, I see Portland being home to an expansion team maybe in the future, but I don't see Portland being a home to the A's anytime soon. Even though they're more than likely than the other ones that I mentioned, I don't see them being a home to the A's. At number 7 for Tampa Bay, for the Rays, at number 7, I have to go with New Orleans. New Orleans, even though they're more likely than Columbia, more likely than Orlando, and more likely than Nashville, and they are on a waterfront, if you will. I just don't see it working. I don't see it working similarly because of what I feel would happen to the A's if they were to go to Portland, and that is a rebranding. Yeah, I just don't see it being viable, for the A's not the A's, but for the Rays, I should say, to go to New Orleans without agreeing to allow themselves to be rebranded into something else. Because you got to remember, the Rays got a couple of World Series titles under the belts, and I don't think they want to, tarnish that reputation or tarnish that legacy or end that legacy by going to New Orleans and allowing themselves to be rebranded into another name. So, even though New Orleans is more than likely than, Columbia, Nashville, and Orlando, I just don't see it being a suitable place unless, the Rays management team agrees to allow themselves to be rebranded something else upon arrival. So New Orleans, the higher up as a likely place, but not so likely in my opinion. At number 6 for the A's, I have to say number 6, Raleigh, North Carolina. And this is one that's been brought up a lot, but I just don't see it happening because you would really have to realign the divisions. You would have to take a team out of the Central to try to even it up with the West, or you'd have to take a team out of the NL and put them in the AL West to replace the A's if they were to go to Raleigh, North Carolina, because without a shadow of a doubt that they would end up, being part of the East Division because of that relocation. Even though it's more likely than the previous cities that I've mentioned, I just don't see the A's going there. I'm not ruling it out. Definitely, I'm not ruling it out because it's one of the towns that's been one of the cities that's been brought up. But I just don't see it right now. I just don't see it really being feasible or viable. And I don't think, honestly, this is my truth on this, I don't think the MLB wants to go through any of that realignment headache in the future, if you know what I mean. So I feel that even though it's more likely than anything right now than the ones I've mentioned, I just don't see it as being a potential home. Now, as far as the Rays go, again, we're going right back to Raleigh, North Carolina, because I know they've also been in the running for the Rays, and I think the Rays would fit well there. But again, I feel that, like with the A's, I don't think they would. Well, actually, with the Rays, they wouldn't have to realign anyway. They're in the East Division anyway. But with the Rays, again, it goes back to the New Orleans deal. I think if they were to go to Raleigh, they'd want to rebrand them. They'd want to rename them. They want to give them different colors or colors similar to the originals, to the original Ray colors. And I don't think they want to do that. I don't think they want to kill the legacy or the history that the Rays franchise has built. Again, like I said, they have numerous championship titles under the wing, numerous world championships under the wing. So I don't think they're going to want to tarnish all that. I don't think they're going to want to get rid of all that, or even hurt the legacy, period. So even though Raleigh is more viable than the cities I just mentioned, I just don't see it being that viable unless, the Rays, like with New Orleans, would want to allow themselves to be rebranded. So Raleigh, North Carolina, more than likely than the ones I've mentioned, but not so likely because of the possibility of rebranding, and I don't think they would want that. All right, so we're on the top 5 now. At number 5, I have to go for the A's, San Antonio. San Antonio is in Texas, and yes, Texas has a lot of teams already. Well, actually, 2 Major League Baseball teams, the Rangers and the Astros, the Rangers in Arlington, the Astros in Houston. So I wouldn't rule it out for Texas to have a 3rd team. I mean, look at here in California. You got, the A's, of course. You got the Giants. You got the Dodgers. You got the Padres. You got the Angels. So I wouldn't rule it out that if Texas wanted another team, they could get the A's for San Antonio. I'm not ruling that out. So to me, at number 5, San Antonio is very likely, is a top 5 contender. And I do see San Antonio as being a city that would let the A's remain as they are. They wouldn't rebrand them or anything. They wouldn't change the color scheme or anything. They'd let them be as they are. And the only thing that would change is they'd go from the Oakland A's to the San Antonio A's, or the Oakland Athletics to the San Antonio Athletics. So San Antonio, to me, is more likely for them. And just like before, the same goes for the Rays. I think San Antonio would be a good fit for the Rays. I think the Rays, just like with the A's, would be able to stay as themselves. There wouldn't be no rebranding. So I feel the A's, not A's, but the Rays would have a good home in San Antonio. And I think San Antonio financially has the money to be able to supply both teams, depending on who would be the first to go. They'd be able to supply both teams with a proper stadium and a base of operations for them in the future. So to me, San Antonio, for the Rays and the A's, are top 5 contenders for possible relocation. Number 4, as far as possible relocation, this might sound crazy to some people. It might sound crazy, but I'm going to go. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? I'm going to go with Utah. And I'm going to go with Salt Lake City. That's right. You heard me. Salt Lake City for the A's. And why do I say that? Because I feel that you got a beautiful atmosphere there. The location, depending on where it would be perfect for them. And I think, just like with San Antonio, Salt Lake City would give the A's a proper welcome. They would allow them to remain as they are. They would treat them well. And honestly, you think when things get better financially for a lot of us, it's not that far of a drive or a flight, even on the weekends to see some ball games, and there you go. So I think Salt Lake City, Salt Lake, Utah, if you will, would be a perfect fit for the A's, as a number 4 contender. As far as the Tampa Bay Rays go, we're going to go to New Mexico. That's right, we're going to go to New Mexico, and I feel Albuquerque is a good place for them. Albuquerque would be a great place for the Rays. I feel that they would be treated well there. Again, just like with the A's, I feel Albuquerque would allow them to, remain as they are. They wouldn't, force them to rebrand or anything. I think they would give them the proper welcome they need. And they would definitely help them out financially in getting a new stadium built to bring them over to New Mexico. And again, yes, realignment may be an issue for MLB, but if it's going to give the Rays a proper home in the future, I can definitely see it. All right, at number 3 for the A's, I'm going to go with Reno, Nevada. I know that sounds weird, but Reno to me is the most likely scenario for the A's, especially from a regional perspective. It's not that far of a drive from Oakland to Reno. So I think it would be perfect. I think Reno would be willing to take the A's in. They got plenty of space in that area to build a proper stadium. So I think Reno, Nevada would be a perfect suitable area for the A's to relocate. And again, I think Reno would be cool with them remaining as the A's. The Reno A's, the Reno Athletics. I think that would be great. Heck, you can even just call them the Nevada A's or the Nevada Athletics if you wanted to do that. So, to me, I think Reno would be a perfect place for the A's to relocate. And that's why they're number 3. For the Rays, this is what gets a little bit more tricky. But I think at number 3 for the Rays, I have to go with Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, Richmond, Virginia. I know that sounds weird, and it might be the kind of place that has them kind of rebrand themselves, but I could see Richmond, Virginia being a good home for the Rays. I don't know how close it is to the water or anything like that, but I think Richmond would be perfect for the Tampa Bay Rays to relocate. I think Richmond would welcome them. I think they would have a proper place there, and I think I think the folks in Richmond would be happy to have a baseball team. I really do. So I think Richmond is perfect. Richmond, Virginia is perfect for the Rays to go to, and that's why they're at number 3. Number 2, honestly, for me, when it comes to the A's relocating, it's got to be right back here in Oakland. It's got to be in Oakland. There's no doubt about that. And I think this is where the waterfront deal will come into place. Because it sounds like this might be the most likely scenario. All the information's coming in about the A's, basically being the ones that will privately fund this along with some help, from the city and all that if they choose to. Major League Baseball is getting on the city of Oakland to keep the A's there because honestly, they don't want to have to realign the divisions because Oakland may go across the country for a new home. So Oakland to me is the second most logical place for them to stay. And the only relocation I see them doing is into a new stadium at Jackson Square on the waterfront. And I think it'd be perfect. I really do. As far as the Rays go at number 2 to me for the Rays. And number 2 for the Rays, I can see Charleston, West Virginia. Yeah, we're staying in the Virginias for the Rays. Charleston, I don't know if they have a minor league team or not. I don't think they do. So I think that would be a perfect fit for them. The Charleston region, the Charleston Rays, if you will. It's near the East Coast. It's near the Atlantic, so I can definitely see the Rays going there as a second to top viable relocation option for them. So to me, the Rays and second best option for relocation is Charleston. That's honestly my opinion. So Charleston, West Virginia would be a perfect, second best relocation for them as far as, trying to find a new place for a new stadium. That being the Rays, that is. And at number one for the A's is Las Vegas. I know a lot of people don't like the fact, especially if you live in Oakland, you don't like the fact that Las Vegas already took the Raiders. You don't want them to take the A's. But when you really think about it, it's not that far of a travel. It's not really that far of a travel, especially on the weekends. I mean, there's a lot of diehard Raider fans that have taken the trip on the weekends to Las Vegas to go support the Raiders. Or will be doing that eventually, I should say. They will be doing that within the year. They're going to be taking those planned trips that they were planning last season before the pandemic and saying, we're going down to Las Vegas and we're going to support our Raiders. So So I can definitely see that happening with the A's. So Las Vegas to me is a top option. Las Vegas has let it be known that they want a team, in the city. They've shown that they're willing to help fund a new stadium to welcome a team in. So I think Las Vegas would be perfect. And again, like I said recently with other towns, I think Las Vegas would allow the A's to remain as they are. They would allow them to be the A's, the Las Vegas A's, the Las Vegas Athletics. I could see that. I don't see any rebranding. I really don't. So I think Las Vegas is the number one option for relocation if nothing works out. And as far as the Rays go, the Rays, it's a tie. It's a tie. It's a tie between staying in Tampa Bay with a new stadium being built or going to Montreal. And the reason I say it's a tie because I know, just like with the fans in Oakland and around the region, nobody wants to see the A's leave the city. Heck, MLB doesn't want to see them leave the city. And the same can go for the Rays in Tampa Bay. Nobody in Tampa Bay wants to see the Rays leave. Nobody in MLB wants to see the Rays leave Tampa Bay, especially with all the lineage, I should say, that they have, the legacy, the championships, and all that. So I don't think they want to they don't want to fracture. They don't want to fracture, that in any kind of way. So I think Tampa Bay, tied at number one with Montreal, remaining there is a top option, is the top option, along with the relocation to Montreal, because I think MLB might pressure the city of Tampa Bay, just like they're trying to do with Oakland, to build a new stadium for the Rays to keep them there. Now, the reason it's tied with Montreal, the reason it's tied up with them, is because Montreal has let it be known that they want a team back. They want a championship team back in their city. I don't know if they still have the Olympic Stadium up. I don't think they do, but obviously they're willing to, put out the buku bucks, if you will. They're willing to shell out the money financially to get a team back, into the city, into the country, into the province, if you will. So if Montreal is willing to do all that, and it's been one of the top city names floated out there for the Rays to relocate to, I can't argue with it. I can't argue with it. That's why it's tied at number one with Tampa Bay, as being a place for the Rays to go. It's tied with Tampa Bay because, one, like I said, people and MLB would love the Rays to stay in Tampa Bay with a new stadium. But we also see the viability of getting another team in Canada, especially back in the former home in Providence where the Expos were, and see what happens. Now, yes, just like I said with the Richmond option, number 3 or 4, something like that. Gotta look again. But with the Richmond option, not that, moments ago, I should say, with the Richmond option, yeah, I could see a bit of rebranding, but here's the thing. It's a rebranding nobody would have a problem with because it's a name folks would recognize. Because just like with the NBA and the possibility that I mentioned earlier, Sacramento at one point thinking of going to Seattle, relocating there if they didn't get a new arena, and thus they would be redubbed of the Supersonic, basically a new version of them. I could see that happening with the Rays. I could see them going to Montreal, probably playing temporarily in whatever stadium they have there, if the Olympic Stadium's still up or not. And I could see them being rebranded a new version of the Montreal Expos. I could see that. I could see the Montreal Expos, being revived if the Tampa Bay Rays, if the Rays organization relocates to Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I could see that. But that's up to the city of Tampa. That's up to the Rays organization, and that's up to MLB. The Major League Baseball, Major League Baseball offices. Because I think, honestly, like I said, I think they would want the Rays, just like with the A's, to remain where they are. Which is why Montreal and Tampa Bay are tied at number one as possible places for the Rays to land. Tampa Bay for them to remain if they get a new stadium, because they have that lineage and that championship pedigree that they've had of winning numerous titles and world titles. And, again, people in Tampa Bay would not want to see their team go away. And then on the other hand, you have basically, Montreal, who's been wanting a team for so long, for almost like 2 decades, or over 2 decades, or maybe, is it 2? No, almost 3 decades, honestly. I think it's been 3 decades, since they lost the Expos to Washington. So I think, they'd be willing, like I say, to shell out the buku bucks to get a team back there. And again, the saving grace, the positivity, is not only would the Rays benefit from potentially a new stadium being built in that region, but they have the benefit, they have the positive silver lining of knowing that although they're leaving their legacy behind, they're helping to rebuild an original legacy from the past. They're helping to reinvigorate, revive, resurrect a brand from the past, and bring that championship pedigree in history they made in Tampa Bay to Montreal, and merge it with the old and soon-to-be new history of the Expos. That's the positive there. So to me, at number 1 for the Rays, as far as relocation goes, number 1 is a tie between remaining in Tampa Bay with a new stadium or going to Montreal and resurrecting, reviving an old MLB brand in the Expos. And as far as the A's go, number 1 has to be Las Vegas. So let me know what your thoughts are. How do you feel about my thoughts on my top 10 for both the A's and the Rays as far as, relocation goes? How do you feel about it? Comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the live chat. And I'm out.